Hey, this is Jeff, and something struck me when I started a new character for a Fallout New Vegas challenge run I'm doing. It's not directly related, so I thought I'd make a little sidebar video to cover it. In Fallout New Vegas, Courier 6 is a tabula rasa. The game starts as you're revived after being shot in the head, you have amnesia, and all you know for sure is that you were attacked because you were carrying a platinum chip. As you proceed through the main quest, you discover more about the delivery, but your past before you took that job is left entirely to the player's imagination. The Lonesome Road DLC fills in some of the blanks, but even then there's a great deal of uncertainty about your background. In contrast, the Lone Wanderer's background in Fallout 3 is unambiguous, even more so than the sole survivor in Fallout 4. Fallout 3 starts literally at the moment of your birth, and the tutorial is presented as a series of vignettes from your childhood in Vault 101. You know exactly where the Lone Wanderer comes from. Or do you? Almost immediately after your escape from the vault, you discover that you weren't born there, but immigrated with your father when you were an infant. That's where the real mystery of Fallout 3 begins. And much like Fallout New Vegas, it took a DLC to shed light on the answers. In Point Lookout, you meet a young woman named Nadine. Like the player character, she's independent, resourceful, and determined. According to the official Fallout 3 strategy guide, she was always a headstrong girl, the first to bag a live Mirelurk hatchling, but beyond her personality, she has more agency than any other NPC in the game. For its time, the Radiant AI did a pretty good job of giving most NPCs some semblance of autonomy. They eat, sleep, and go about their daily business in a reasonably immersive way. But almost universally, once they tell the player about something they need, you'll find them at home or at work, passively waiting literally forever until you do it. It can be almost comical at times. Sarah Lyons is chomping at the bit to take on the Enclave and liberate the Purifier, but tell her you need to run home and grab your best guns and armor, and then go do some side questing, work on your bobblehead collection, take a vacation, whatever, and 6 months later, she'll still be there, standing in the Citadel with her squad, ready to assault Project Purity. Even your father, James, who, next to Nadine, has one of the most fully realized motivations in the game, suffers from that a bit. He's certainly a self-starter off-screen, and after you rescue him from the simulation, he goes to Rivet City with or without you. But he'll wait forever for you to arrive before he tries to convince Dr. Lee to resume work on the Purifier. He'll stand outside the memorial forever until you kill the super mutants, and he'll wander around the control room checking systems forever until you make the repairs. I've gone back after literally 9 months of in-game time, and nobody on his team could go downstairs to replace some fuses without me. But Nadine, without any help from the player, escapes from the cult where you meet her, discovers who gave you both non-consensual brain surgery, and takes over a shipping business carrying passengers and cargo between Point Lookout and the Capital Wasteland. Bottom line, she's unique among Fallout 3 NPCs in the degree of initiative and self-reliance she displays, not just in her dialogue, but in her actions. So why is that? Let's talk to her mother.
Please, I'm not asking for much, but if you're going to Point Lookout and you find a girl named Nadine, just give her this note. She's about your age, and when she left, her hair was dyed bright orange. You shouldn't have any problem recognizing her. She told me she wanted to go find her fortune, but I thought it was too dangerous. I should have known better than to say that. Moment I told her she couldn't go, it was just a matter of time before she ran off.
So Catherine comes across as intelligent, but defeated, and definitely overprotective of Nadine. It makes complete sense that you find her near the dock after Nadine's disappearance, distraught and desperate for someone to help find her missing daughter. And to some degree, it's understandable why she might continue hanging out there after Nadine becomes the riverboat captain. But what's really interesting is how you sometimes see her staring in the direction of Project Purity, or even find her in the water near the boat as if she's thinking about swimming over there. Now, you might think that's just another case of Fallout 3's occasionally janky AI pathing system, but I think it's another clue to our mystery. So let's back up a bit. When you rescue James from Vault 112 and ask him about being born in the wasteland, he seems a bit evasive.
Progress came to a halt. And then you were born. Your mother and I had talked about what to do when that time came. But then we lost her, and I had to make a decision. I chose to leave. From what I understand, things happened quickly after that.
Now, I need to be a little bit careful here. While we must acknowledge that his work eventually results in abundant, rad-free water for the capital wasteland, we need to remove our rose-tinted glasses and evaluate his legacy with an impartial eye. Genius, visionary, martyr, all true, but he was not without flaws. At the end of his life, trying to protect the Purifier from the Enclave, he lies to Colonel Autumn first about the viability of the project, and then about turning over the research data, a distraction that allows him to cause an overload that kills most of the Enclave soldiers and disables Colonel Autumn, at the cost of his own life. To be sure, his deception allows the rest of his team to escape and eventually retake the Purifier, but neither his altruistic intent nor the positive consequences of his sacrifice are relevant here. What most people overlook is the effortless and convincing way he misleads Autumn under extreme duress that would only be possible with a lifetime of practice. There are many examples in the game of times when James was, shall we say, less than truthful.
We can't accomplish anything until we can get inside, but none of us are particularly capable fighters.
Says the man who escaped Vault 101, went to Megaton, GNR, Rivet City, and all the way to Vault 112, alone with only a vault suit and a .32 pistol. A journey fraught with raiders, super mutants, and dangerous creatures, and presents a formidable challenge for you, the protagonist, even as you acquire improved armor and weapons, and possibly companions.
Yes, I lied about where you were born, about where I was born.
I'd like to believe you, James. I really would.
Daddy lied. Life's full of little disappointments.
Here I come again, the very paragon of failure and false promises.
I think we have to face the uncomfortable truth that James was a habitual liar. Now rest assured, I wouldn't drag his reputation through the dirt for the sake of mere sensationalism, or even historical objectivity. But his challenges with honesty, combined with another one of his flaws, are crucial context to solve the mystery. James was, at the risk of being crude, horny. Exhibit A, this holotape of James and the Lone Wanderer's mother before the Lone Wanderer was born.
We're going to recalibrate the equipment and try again tomorrow. So that... James, please. I'm trying to work. Now's not the time. So that's the next step. Assuming we get the results we need, we'll move on to... James! Stop! I need to finish these notes. We'll move on to diagnosing the issues with the radiation dampeners. That should... Ow! James! Now? We really shouldn't.
Now, of course having a healthy libido certainly isn't a sin, but indulging that appetite by cheating on your wife with a coworker, that's another story. There's a not-so-subtle implication in Dr. Lee's dialogue with the player character and with other NPCs that her relationship with James wasn't exclusively professional. So let's just say, hypothetically, that contrary to what you're told, your mother didn't die during childbirth. It was obviously a difficult delivery with serious complications, as evidenced by the medical emergency in the opening cutscene, but assume she survived. She would have had an extended period of recovery and rehab, and dear old dad just couldn't keep it in his pants that long. He had an affair with Dr. Lee, and when your mother found out about it, she left him. Multiple characters tell you the Purifier was her dream, and her departure under those circumstances would have sealed the project's fate just as surely as if she had died. It would explain the peculiar mixture of professional respect, emotional wariness, and sexual tension between Dad and Dr. Lee when they reunite at Rivet City. Admittedly, that's conjecture, but the fact that he lies when he's uncomfortable has been established beyond any doubt. So if it were true, there is zero chance he'd tell you the truth about it. So how does that connect with Nadine? Well, if you meet her and then tell her mother that she isn't ready to come home yet...
Too busy having her adventures to think about family, like mother, like daughter.
And consider the note her mother asks you to give her when you travel to Point Lookout. I don't blame you for running off to find something better. At your age, you think you're wasting away at home while the world's just waiting for you to come get it. And when I was about your age, I ran off from my mom too. And even though there were some terrible things along the way, it ended with me having you, so I can't complain. And remember, she said Nadine is about your age. Does that not sound like what you might be told by a woman who left home to pursue a radical dream, say, providing clean water to the wasteland, only to see that project hit obstacle after obstacle? A woman whose husband cheated on her during her most vulnerable moment, who left behind an infant child in her blind haste to escape the nightmare her life had become, and who started over and raised a daughter whom she desperately seeks to protect at all costs. I think it does. And would that woman not still harbor feelings of regret and longing, if not for James, at least for the purifier itself? And after it's finally activated, a sense of pride and more than a little curiosity? I think she would. Perhaps even enough to take up residence nearby. I realize this sounds like a lot of speculation and hearsay up to this point, so let's get to the most obvious clue. Nadine's mother's name is Catherine. You can see it right on her dialogue screen. No one ever directly tells you the name of the Lone Wanderer's mother, but you can hear it in the opening cutscene and on the holotapes James left at the Purifier.
As much as this place means to me, as much as it meant to Catherine, this is no place for an infant, especially an infant without his mother.
Now, you might say that's just a coincidence, but there are hundreds of named characters in Fallout 3, and there are only half a dozen instances of characters sharing a first name. In all of those instances, with only one exception, one or both of the characters have a last name that distinguishes them from each other. That's obviously because the game designers wanted to disambiguate the NPCs so the player doesn't get confused about who's involved with which quest. The sole exception is Catherine. I assert that this wasn't an oversight by the developers, it was an acknowledgement that Catherine, the Lone Wanderer's mother, and Catherine, Nadine's mother, are one and the same. There are a few possible objections to that theory. First, the voice of the Catherine in the birth scene and on the holotape is different from the voice of Nadine's mom. But she's 20 years older, and people's voices change over time. And in a meta context, it wouldn't be the first time a character's voice actor was changed between releases. Likewise, if you use console commands to go into free camera mode during the childbirth cutscene, Catherine's appearance is very different from how she looks when you meet her near the riverboat. But without console commands, all you can see during that cutscene is her legs. So the designers probably felt free to change her appearance for the DLC. The most significant objection is that Dr. Lee backs up your father's story, that Catherine died in childbirth. But while she's not a pathological liar like James, she is a narcissist. She slept with her best friend's husband. She forced Pinkerton out of his lab, his council seat, and eventually out of Rivet City altogether, even though he founded it and was doing a perfectly competent job running it. She leaves town in a huff after the Purifier is activated because the Brotherhood won't let her keep exclusive personal control over it. And by Fallout 4, she's working for the Institute, who, by many people's standards, are the principal bad guys in that game. You might think someone with a complete disregard for your feelings might just come out and say, "Yeah, I banged your dad, so your mom left him." But there's no way she would admit to you, or especially herself, that responsibility for the failure of the project 20 years ago lies ultimately with her. On the other hand, one notable witness who knew James and you when you were an infant, but doesn't mention Catherine's death when you ask her about him, is Star Paladin Cross. In fact, she doesn't mention Catherine at all, which seems odd since Catherine was the driving force behind the Purifier concept. But it does make sense if Catherine didn't die and the breakup of the original Project Purity team was due to interpersonal conflict. 3 things will prevent Cross from becoming the player's companion: if you already have a follower, if you have evil karma, or if you make a mildly sarcastic comment about James the first time you meet her. If you're not evil and dismiss your other follower, she'll join you immediately. If you are evil but your karma improves, she'll change her mind. But that comment about James locks her out as a follower permanently. She obviously wouldn't reopen old wounds that would tarnish the reputation and legacy of a man she reveres as a hero. But lying to support the version of events related by James and Dr. Lee would violate her personal and professional code of conduct, so she just keeps her mouth shut. But here's the smoking gun. When James gives you the activation code for the purifier, he explains how he chose it and reminds you of something you probably forgot he told you all the way back in the tutorial section.
You remember your mother's favorite passage? Revelation 21:6. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Don't you see? This is what it all means. The water, the purifier. This is the water of life, your mother's dream.
Compare that to this dialogue with Catherine that's unavailable in the vanilla game due to technical reasons, but I managed to restore with a bit of fiddling.
Oh, you're back.
I found Nadine. She joined a tribal cult in an ancient cathedral.
That sounds like her. People have clung to many beliefs since the Great War. Here's one of my favorites. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely.
And there's the answer to the mystery. Catherine, the emotionally damaged but devout and loving mother who stares wistfully across the river at Project Purity and occasionally tries to swim over to it, is your mother. Nadine, the rebellious, resourceful, and resolute character, the only NPC in the game with genuine agency independent of the player character's actions, is the way she is because she's your little sister, or maybe more likely half-sister, and those characteristics run in the family. Well, I rest my case. You need to decide for yourself if you believe it. All the evidence I presented is based on canon sources. Well, almost. I suppose it's inevitable that some Fallout 3 super sleuth would eventually expose this, so I confess. I did falsify the final piece of evidence and withhold one fact that didn't support my argument. The secret dialogue with Catherine is a deepfake. It's a mod I made using Marcella's dialogue files because she's voiced by the same actress. And the fact I omitted is, today is April Fool's Day. But otherwise, I still stand by my theory. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.